The laughter didn't come from cruelty at first, it came from surprise. A soft, uncertain ripple across the hall when the boy stepped onto the stage, too small for the spotlight that swallowed him whole. His shoes were worn thin at the soles, the laces mismatched, the fabric of his shirt washed so many times it had forgotten its original color. He stood there with his hands clenched together, knuckles pale, shoulders slightly hunched as if he expected the world to push him back where he came from. The judges exchanged looks, the kind that said they had seen this before, another hopeful face, another fragile dream. The host leaned closer, microphone steady, voice gentle but professional. "What's your name?" "Eli," he said. It barely traveled past his lips, yet somehow reached every corner of the room. "And how old are you, Eli?" 12. A pause. A judge smiled politely. "What will you be doing for us today?" Eli swallowed. His eyes drifted past the judges, past the cameras, past the audience, as if he were looking for someone who wasn't there. "I'm going to sing," he said. Then, almost as an afterthought, "I sing for my mom." The room shifted. The air grew heavier. One judge tilted their head. "Is she here with you today?" Eli shook his head slowly. "She can't hear anymore." He hesitated, then added, "But she always listened." Something about the way he said it, not sad, not dramatic, just honest, caused the quiet to deepen. The audience leaned forward. The laughter was gone now, replaced by something fragile and attentive. Eli stepped closer to the microphone. It was too high for him. A stagehand moved to help, but he shook his head and stood on his toes instead, refusing assistance. He closed his eyes for a second, drawing in a breath that sounded too heavy for such a small chest. His hands were still shaking, but he didn't hide them. The music began, simple, soft, almost bare. Then he sang. The first note wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it carried something raw and unprotected, like a confession whispered into the dark. His voice quivered, not from weakness, but from weight. As if every word carried years of unshed tears, unfinished conversations, and promises made in silence. In the audience, a woman pressed her hand to her mouth. A man lowered his phone, suddenly ashamed to record. One judge's confident posture softened, another blinked hard, eyes shining under the stage lights. Eli sang about waiting rooms and empty chairs. About learning to smile when your heart aches. About loving someone so much that even silence feels loud. His voice cracked once, just for a moment, and the sound cut deeper than perfection ever could. As he sang, images seemed to form without being shown, a small kitchen late at night, a boy humming while someone rested their hand against his chest to feel the vibration. A promise whispered before sleep. A dream held together by hope and sacrifice. Halfway through the song, Eli opened his eyes. They were wet, but steady. He wasn't singing to the judges anymore. He was singing through them, beyond them, to somewhere only he could see. When the final note faded, it didn't end, it lingered. The silence afterward stretched so long it felt sacred. No one clapped. No one moved. Even the cameras seemed unsure. Then a single tear rolled down one judge's cheek. Another judge covered their face completely, shoulders trembling. Eli lowered his head, unsure if he had done enough, unsure if he had done too much. He whispered, so quietly it almost didn't exist, "That was for you, Mom." And in that moment, the world didn't see a poor boy anymore. They saw courage. They heard love. And they felt a voice that would never be forgotten. The question followed him backstage, soft but curious, the way adults speak when they sense something fragile. "Eli, where did you learn to sing like that?" He stood near the wall, away from the lights, clutching a paper cup of water he hadn't touched. The noise from the audience still echoed faintly, but it felt far away, like another world. Eli looked down at his hands before answering, as if the story lived there. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded note, creased so many times it looked like it might fall apart. "My mom," he said. "She taught me." One of the producers crouched to his level. "Did she sing too?" Eli shook his head. "She couldn't hear." That answer landed heavier than expected. The room grew quiet again. He unfolded the note carefully, smoothing it with his thumb, treating it like something sacred. The handwriting was uneven, words slightly slanted, written by someone who had learned to write by feeling rather than hearing rhythm. "If life takes away your sound," he read softly, "make your heart louder. Sing so people can feel you." He swallowed. "She wrote that for me." Eli began to explain, not dramatically, not seeking sympathy, just truth. His mother had lost her hearing years ago after an illness they could never afford to treat properly. From that moment on, the world changed for both of them. Conversations became notes. Laughter became smiles. Music became vibration. At night, Eli said, "I used to sing while she put her hand here." He placed his palm over his chest. "She said she could hear me there." When money grew scarce, it was his mother who skipped meals so he wouldn't. When school got harder, she stayed up late helping him study, even when her eyes were tired. When he said he wanted to sing on a big stage one day, she didn't laugh. She wrote another note instead, "One day, the world will listen." After she passed away, the house became very quiet. Too quiet. Eli stopped singing for a long time. Not because he forgot how, but because it hurt to sing without someone listening the way she did. He worked small jobs after school, cleaning tables, washing dishes, humming quietly so no one would hear. The audition ticket cost more than he could afford, but he remembered her words. He remembered her hands on his chest. He remembered the notes. "So I came," he said simply. "Even if I lost." The producer nodded slowly, eyes wet. "You didn't lose, Eli." Eli looked up, surprised. "I didn't." "No," she said gently. "You reminded people why music exists." He smiled. Small, shy, unsure. Fame didn't mean much to him. Applause felt strange. But somewhere deep inside, he felt something familiar. Not sound. Not noise. Connection. And for the first time since she was gone, Eli felt like his mother had heard him again. The stage felt different when Eli returned. The lights were the same, the judges sat in the same seats, but something invisible had shifted, like the room itself remembered him. The host announced his name again, and this time there was no laughter, no uncertainty. The audience rose in a wave of applause before he even reached the microphone. Eli froze for a second, overwhelmed, then bowed his head slightly, a habit he'd learned from gratitude rather than confidence. The judges didn't rush to speak. One of them leaned back, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the boy as if afraid to break whatever fragile truth still lingered in the air. Finally, the sternest judge cleared his throat. His voice was quieter than anyone expected. "Eli," he said, "I've listened to thousands of voices in my life. Trained voices. Perfect voices. But what you shared today wasn't technique. It was honesty." The judge paused. His eyes glistened. He didn't wipe them this time. That kind of voice doesn't come from lessons. It comes from living. A murmur swept through the crowd. Eli's hands trembled again, but he didn't step back. Another judge leaned forward. "When you sang, I forgot where I was. I didn't see a stage. I saw a kitchen table, late nights, someone loving you enough to believe when the world didn't." Eli's chest tightened. He pressed his lips together, fighting tears. Cameras zoomed in, catching the moment he looked upward, not to the lights, but beyond them. His voice came out barely above a whisper. "That song, that was for my mom." The audience broke. Applause exploded, mixed with sobs, people standing, hands over hearts. But Eli barely reacted. He wasn't listening to the noise. He was listening for something else, the feeling he used to know when her hand rested against his chest. Backstage, the energy was chaotic. Producers rushed around, phones buzzing, voices overlapping. Someone hugged him. Someone handed him a towel. Someone said, "You're going viral." The words meant nothing to him. He sat on a folding chair near the wall, shoulders curled inward, trying to breathe through the storm. A screen nearby replayed his performance. He didn't watch it. Instead, he pulled the folded note from his pocket again, tracing the letters with his thumb like a map back home. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Millions watched. Millions felt something crack open inside them. Comments poured in. People writing about parents they'd lost, sacrifices they never noticed, words they wished they'd said sooner. Teachers played the clip in classrooms. Parents hugged their children tighter that night. But what no one saw was Eli later that evening, sitting alone on the steps outside the building, legs dangling, humming softly to himself. A security guard stopped nearby, unsure whether to interrupt. "You did something special in there," the guard said gently. Eli nodded. "I know." "You okay?" Eli thought for a moment. "I think, she heard me." Inside, one of the judges watched him through the glass doors. The judge who was known for breaking dreams, not lifting them. He turned to the producers and said, "Make sure this boy is protected. Not polished. Protected." Because everyone understood now, this wasn't a moment to exploit. It was a moment to honor.